What's one life lesson that's really stuck with you?
In my career, I was trying to say, how do I deliver a tough message? There's three things you should remember. The first one is go at it directly. Don't run around the bush. Secondly, tell it like it is, because it helps no one if the other person doesn't understand. And thirdly, don't apologize, because probably the other person has done something that wasn't great. It's not your fault.
I like that.
My name is Christian Pau. I'm the general manager for the Lego Group for UK and Ireland. We employ about 2,000 people in the UK. And this is my Duvet.
Why is play important?
For young adults, it's what we call the joyful focus. Imagine you take a box of bricks, you have that balance again between challenge and joy. So it's joyful to build, but maybe there's some tricky elements to build. All your attention is on the building experience. And everything else in your life for a moment can become quiet.
What is your advice to a young person when making a tough decision? What should they be considering?
I would advise to step back from this daily grind potentially. And I think that's where you have the headspace to think about. My wife and me took a 2 month off, went to Australia in a camper van and considered what do we want from life. And at that point, we basically said, we're going to quit the jobs we currently have. I was 1 year away from making partner, and I probably would have earned a lot more than I earn now. But was it the right thing? Was it what I really wanted? So joining the Lego Group, I let go of a lot of team leadership and I let go of quite a bit of salary. I would always do it again.
Wow. Well, I tried to build the Duvet.
We can take it to our Lego Ideas team. You need 10,000 votes and then...
Yeah. And my final question, are you ready for it? What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
Che vuoi gira largo da me, non sai che oramai è finita con te. Tu sei quella che mi fa passare soltanto chi sei.
So thank you for coming on the show, and we're literally playing Lego as we go, which I love because growing up I couldn't afford much, but Lego was something I absolutely loved. And Christmas I asked for Lego and I built an airport. But I used to take it really seriously and I used to knock down the airport and say, right, the airport's now closed, and now we had to refurb it. It was just brilliant because I wanted to be an architect growing up. So when I really wanted you to come and join us to talk about all sorts in terms of your career, how play makes a really important part of not just young people's lives, but adults' lives as well. And your tips for anyone trying to get into a professional career, or what do they do to kind of join the Lego Group? So tell me a little bit about where it all started for you, your first job. What was it?
So I grew up in Germany, going to public school, and I basically decided to earn some money for myself. And I was working at a DIY store, basically refilling shelves and just physical hard work.
What does physical hard work mean?
I mean, there's physical hard work, obviously, where you're tired when you stop. And for example, in that job, I was working, I was refilling shelves, I was moving pallets around, and I could feel my back in the evening going home. I think that's one part of hard work. But you can also define hard work as something where you're mentally stretched, where you lean in. It's not necessarily only the hours. I think sometimes also say the pressure you're under, the things you want to move, the impact you want to have, that can also lead to really hard work. So I think it's a broad term. And I think also hard work can be different for different people. And
working in that store, was it to earn money? What was your motivation to actually get up and get a job? Because we see it time and time again, and young people tuning in, they wait for this perfect job, and I don't think there's such a thing as a perfect job. I'm a big believer, get yourself into any job if you can't find one, and let the magic work itself out. What was it for you? Was it to earn money? Was it to get experience? Was it so you can buy all your Lego sets? What was it?
So I think there was an element of earning money, but at the same time, for a long time in my life, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I really wanted to see, like I said, firsthand, what is it to work? What is it to experience? Because you have this abstract idea of joining a workplace, what it will be like. And once you're in there, it might be very different from what you expected. So from the start, I felt like I want to keep my career open. I want to, when I, for example, went to study, I studied economics and engineering to be broad. But already early in my school days, I did internships at Unilever, for example, or after the DIY store, just to see what's an office job, what's a job on the shop floor, because I didn't know. And I think this idea of staying broad at the beginning of your career and really being curious and understanding what is it like has served me really well.
I love that, because you put yourself into it and said, look, I don't know what all this means. I'm going to go and do a job in a store. I'm going to go Unilever. I'm going to just observe and be curious and figure it out. And what was it that really attracted you to a company like a Unilever or other organizations? What was it that made you kind of say, you know what, I'm going to start an internship there? And what do you think young people should be looking out for when they're applying for jobs or going to an interview? Because from the face front, an organization can look absolutely amazing, or it can look absolutely dull.
Yes.
And you could go in there at a dull organization, you realize it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, I would love to give you the silver bullet to say this is how you identify a great organization, but I don't think there is one. And in the end, it's a bit of a try and error. So my main motivation was curiosity, to really see how different places work. And obviously you can do some research, you can get Glassdoor or others to tell you a little bit of what a company might be inside, but you can only really learn once you experience it for yourself. And I think that is something that I would encourage people to just stay curious. Don't say early in your life, say what you want to be. Maybe it's good to have an ambition in a direction you want to go, but keep yourself the flexibility, stay curious, and experience very different things. And for example, joining also the Boston Consulting Group later was just an opportunity to see a lot of companies from the inside. And I basically made myself like a list to say, here are companies I could imagine working for, and here are companies I could not imagine working for. And that I can't work for a company list was way longer than the other one, because you need to find something that really fits you and that allows you also to be your authentic self, to really perform well. At least that's something I strongly believe in.
So an interesting fact about myself is that if I'm not selling Lego bricks, I lead a busy life. I spend a lot of time with my wife and 4 kids, 10, 7, 5 and 3 years old, and with my 4 bikes. So if you don't see me playing with my kids, you will see me riding my bikes through the beautiful countryside here in the UK.
And how does one kind of become their authentic self? What are some of the things? If I was sitting here and I said, mentor me on what it means to be my curious and my authentic self, what would you be saying to me that I have to kind of figure it out? And I know some people figure it out earlier or later in life, but from you, you've got so much experience going down your LinkedIn. It's just like, oh, wow. Like, what is your advice to anyone trying to find their authentic self?
Probably it starts by understanding who you are and where you want to go. What I see again and again is that people chase other people's expectations. For example, parents or siblings or your first boss or your friends, or at some point maybe your kids or your partner. If you only run after things other people tell you are right, I believe some might struggle to find their authentic self. So I think it probably starts by really going a bit into yourself and understanding who you are and what you want. And once you have that, it's a little bit like in a plane when they say, put the oxygen mask on for yourself first. That is not egoistic. This is, say, you need to find a place where you can thrive, where you can be your best self, where you can be authentic, and not like put on a show for someone. That could be, if you join a company and it's super successful, you make a career, but you always need to pretend to be someone in that company that you're not. I don't think it's long-term the winning formula. But I think it's a big ask. And when I look around, even like good friends who have a really good career, sometimes I wonder if they wake up in the morning and do their Duvet flip and go to work, can they be their self, or do they still need to say, pull out a bit of a, maybe even wearing something that they wouldn't wear normally, and then pretend to be someone they're not until they close work and go home. And that can still be a good career and earn good money, but is it really fulfilling? And are you really authentic to yourself? And I mean, I have the absolute privilege to work in a company at the Lego Group where I don't need to pretend. I can go in there, be myself. Obviously, sometimes I need to regulate certain character traits that I have to not be like, for example, too strong or too fast or too dominant in meetings. But I never need to compromise on my values. And that is something, as said, I think is an absolute privilege.
And how long did it take you to understand that? Because you took so much sense. Find your authentic self, find out who you are, and do something that you love. How?
It took a while.
So at the start, was you pleasing that friend or that boss or that shiny thing over here?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And what was like? What made you stop in your way and go, something's not right here. I need to pause for a moment and work out what my authentic self is, so I can then be best for me, my family, and my colleagues. Like, what was that?
Yeah. So one example is early in my life. My parents, my grandparents, all my uncles and aunties, all are doctors. So I had quite some pressure even early in my life saying you should consider studying medicine. So that was probably the first piece where I really thought long and hard to say, do I do what people expect me to do or do I do what I want? But that doesn't mean it always works. So for example, joining the Boston Consulting Group was great because you learn a lot. You have this very diverse pool of people. But it's also something that is a big diff because you work so hard, you can hardly reflect what you're doing. You're in this wheel and you're running really fast. You're making a promotion maybe every 1.5 years and you meet senior people and you travel the world. But at some point, my wife and me took a 2-month off, went to Australia in a camper van and considered what do we want from life. And at that point, we basically said, we're going to quit the jobs we currently have. Because everything on the surface is nice. I was 1 year away from making partner at the Boston Consulting Group, potentially making partner. There was no promises, but still, I think I was on a good track. And I probably would have earned a lot more than I earn now, already at the time. But was it the right thing? Was it what I really wanted? Would I have been able to be my authentic self in that role or just have a stellar career on paper, but actually not get up in the morning and be happy with what I'm doing? So joining the Lego Group, I let go of a lot of team leadership and I let go of quite a bit of salary, but I would always do it again.
Wow. That's just so fascinating. You and your wife getting in a camper van, going to Australia, both sitting there, making this life decision to actually not chase the things you're currently chasing. When a young person's making a decision, what is your top tips to them to take in consideration? Because you and your wife in that camper van would have had probably strategically thinking, but what if this happens? Can we afford it? What does happen? What do we have to let go? What we're compromising to do this? What is your advice to a young person who may be studying one thing and says, you know what, this is not for me. I'm gonna leave before I complete it. Or they might be in a job and it's not what they want to do. They're indoors and they want to be outdoors, or they're outdoors and they want to be indoors. When making a tough decision, what should they be considering?
I think there's some very simple things, maybe even before that. I would advise people to sometimes just take that step back. Because we are so busy, our lives are so busy. Sometimes I think people don't even reflect on, is what I'm doing the thing that makes me happy? So I think it starts even before that to say, you know what, I take a break. I take 2 months off if my company allows. A lot of companies offer sabbaticals. We do at the Lego Group and a lot of other companies do as well.
And what is that?
Sabbatical is like you take holidays without pay, but they can be longer. So you can take a 2-month break. Obviously, you need to save up before to afford it, but then you can take a month or 2 months and say, I travel the world, or just take time at home, or I renovate my house. But it's time where you can take a step back from this like daily grind potentially. And I think that's where you have the headspace to think about it. Because say, if you work hard, take a week of holiday, have a very active holiday, not sure how much time there really is to pause and reflect.
So would one of your advices be to your younger self or any young 18, 16, 20-year-old tuning in is carve out time to reflect?
That's one. The other advice I would give is, I think you do well if you do what you like. And what I mean by that is, if you just say, grind through a career because there's a certain goal, it could be partnership, it could be anything, but you're not enjoying what you do, I think that is, again, not a long-term winning strategy. I think it can get you to a certain point. But for example, if you take the analogy with play, if we think about kids play, there's this balance between a challenge and the fun they have while playing. And if you only have fun, after a while it gets boring. If you only have challenge, after a while you get frustrated. And I think you can think about work life a little bit the same. I think you need to find what's your equilibrium between being challenged so you grow, so you push, you develop yourself, but where you also are in a place where you don't hate it all the time, where you have fun and do what you like. And obviously there can be periods where it's super busy, and I'm not saying you need to be fun all the time, but I think there's this balance. And I think if you are able to find that balance, and that could be very different places, very different people, between being challenged and allowing yourself to grow, but not grinding yourself down, but enjoying what you do, I think then you perform best.
So an interesting fact around the Lego Group is that our mission at the Lego Group is to inspire and develop the builders of tomorrow. And actually the name Lego is built of the two Danish words lay and got, which literally means, translated, play well.
What about people? How do you find your people? How do you find your network?
Yeah.
So your wife is your partner in crime as well, but when you're building your career as a young person or deciding what to do, who should you reflect with? I grew up with no network. My mum was an alcoholic. We lived in a council estate. I had no one around me that I could be inspired by. The easiest people that I could see was people on TV shows and entrepreneur shows and stuff. And when you end up meeting them, they're not as inspiring as they look on TV. But how do you get your inspiration? And who do you confide in?
So I can maybe start with me personally, and then maybe see what of that we can make more general. I think for me it was always important to work with people I trust, where there's this safety, this psychological, we call it psychological safety. So it's a place where you can, again, to what we discussed earlier, be your authentic self, where you can show your true colors to people, and people respect you for that. And when I worked at the Boston Consulting Group, I saw a lot of companies from the inside, and some companies lead by pressure or by fear, and you can never be yourself. And I think it's very hard in some of these companies to find someone to really trust you. You might still be able to, but I think also, again, to what we discussed earlier, trying out different things, seeing different company cultures. I'm sure for everyone there's one company culture that really works, but it might not be the first one you experience. So I've been throughout my career basically looking for the places, and as I said, I had a long list of companies I would not join, but I had a list of a few companies I feel like that culture fits to my style and I can be myself. So I think that's one part. Secondly, I think if you have the luck to find someone you really connect with more senior as a mentor, that can be transformative. And that can be someone at work, but it can also be someone on the private side. Not sure there's a silver bullet how to find that person. But I personally was lucky to have, across most of the stages of my career, someone that I could use as a sparring partner, sometimes as a sponsor, where I could bounce off ideas. Maybe one piece of advice is maybe be bold if you see someone you like. And what I mean by that is, and I think that has changed also a little bit. In the past, hierarchy was such a rigid thing. You would never approach someone who's like a couple of steps above you and ask to maybe get some support. I think today, in this day and age, you can reach out to someone who's way senior and just ask to say, would you be willing to be my mentor? And that could be something small like, let's meet once a quarter. And then you bring some topics to your mentor that you want to discuss with him or her. And you will be amazed of how much this can give to both sides. Mm-hmm. It's not a one-way story. So I was really amazed. We currently have interns at the Lego Group, and some of them dare to reach out. And I think it's so powerful because there's so much I can personally learn from someone younger than me and growing up in a very different world and being digital native and all the things I'm not. And hopefully there's something I can give back from my experience. So my advice, coming back to your question, would be if you see someone you like, if you see someone you trust, and even if that person is way more senior, feel free to reach out to them and ask to say, would you be willing to spar with me or be my mentor?
And how do you reach out? Like, what's the best approach? So say, for instance, I just became an intern at the Lego Group and I was like, oh, I really want a coffee or a fruit tea. How would I do that, which would obviously grab your attention because you're a busy individual and there's also lots of people that could probably mentor me. What would you say my approach should be?
I think it doesn't need to be something spectacular. I think it can be something like an email. It can be something like a nice formulated email to say, there's some things I observed, I really feel you're doing, maybe put something positive in it, like you're leading this team in a great way, or something that you that's connecting with you to make it a bit personal. And then just ask, maybe not start with the ask for mentorship, but say, would you have 20 minutes for a coffee? I'd just love to get your view on a few things. And then you have that coffee, hopefully, and see. And if there's a connection, you could take the next step and ask, say, is there a way you would be willing to spend a bit of time with me and then be a mentor?
So make a micro commitment of meeting that individual and then from there to see if there's a connection.
Yes.
Cool. What do you think of my...
Yeah, it's getting there.
So I'm thinking of a 2-bedroom, mobile, camper van. A bit square, but that's fine. We can make roads for that. It's got a couple of windows. Do you think it'll go on the market for a while?
Yeah, we can take it to our Lego Ideas team. You need 10,000 votes and then it will be produced.
There you go. Tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing with the Royal Foundation. Is it the Royal Foundation? Is that what it's called? I know there's different.
Yes.
So what do you do with the Royal Foundation?
So we work with the Royal Foundation and Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales, around early childhood. So Her Royal Highness is really passionate about the fact that like 90% of your brain gets developed between the age of 0 and 5. And at the same time, the focus we currently give as a society, as businesses, on the youngest in our society is probably not enough. So the idea is to create like a movement across science, society, and businesses to really support kids between the age of 0 to 5.
Wow.
So she's, Her Royal Highness called for a task force. So there are 8 members of a task force from the business side, like a business task force. And I'm really glad that the Lego Group and then myself are part of the task force. And we've worked for the last 1.5 years to define a report and a way forward of how to make this front and center. And that report was published a couple of months ago, outlining the benefits, the qualitative, but also the quantitative benefits of investing more into the youngest.
Wow. So it's business leaders coming together to support the next generation.
Yes. It's that, but it's also business leaders trying to carve a way or create a way forward to say, what can businesses do, but how can we rally the broader society to understand the impact of investing in early years?
Do you ever get imposter syndrome sitting on something so important? Because I get imposter syndrome every day. Even before you came in, I've done 100 of these interviews and you can put me in front of anyone and I'll have a good dinner with them. But I was getting imposter. I was like, oh my God, the king of Lego's coming in, and I'm quite like he's gonna judge my Lego bricks. And I've been running around for years telling everyone I'm really good at Lego. So you might see my imposter. I'm an imposter. But do you ever get imposter your own imposter syndrome in doing things like that? And what is your advice to anyone? And we all get it in some shape or form, whether it's a speech, whether it's a presentation, whether it's joining a new thing. So tell me, how does one deal with feeling imposter, not feeling confident? A friend of mine said when she came on the show, courage comes before confidence. Where do you see yourself when it comes to imposter syndrome? How do we make it a little bit more that we've all got it no matter who you are?
Yeah. So yes, there's imposter syndrome within me, and there probably was even more so in the past. So when I was in school, I was not necessarily like one of the cool kids. If I was good in school, but without necessarily working hard, but it somehow put me a little bit in the corner. So I didn't enjoy school, and I basically left with a feeling, say, for example, am I really interested in conversations? And still working for BCG, for the Boston Consulting Group, I was very happy to do content work with clients. I was really insecure when it just came to have a coffee or a dinner, because for me, that part of where I questioned myself was this like, am I cool? Am I a nice person, an interesting person to talk to? Where on the content side, I always felt like I can do all the analysis, and I'm really happy to show you, make something really complex very simple. So to this day, these are some of the things that sometimes play in my head. When for example, when you meet Her Royal Highness, you breathe quite hard. And then also me being German, I was like, what am I doing here? This is like a task force of business leaders for the UK. I'm German, I'm standing here. But in the end, I reminded myself, say, I do something here for the benefit of kids. And that's why I'm here. And then I need to swallow maybe my own imposter syndrome or insecurity and just do the best I can, because in the end, it will come hopefully to something that is positive for kids. To your question, I think the key thing to start realizing is that no matter how senior the person, there is that feeling for insecurity in everyone. And sometimes the one that shout the loudest are the most insecure. Because sometimes you watch people on TV and you feel like they are not troubled by anything. They have an answer to everything. But when you look behind the curtain, it looks very different. And personally, how I treated myself, I think understanding yourself and knowing these voices in your head that sometimes want to make you smaller than you are, realize what they do. Don't let these voices run you. And I think the first step to really understand, for example, my insecurity in chats or private conversations really dates back to my days on the schoolyard, where I felt like maybe not the cool kid. But once you understand it, you can work with it. Because now, before meeting you, for example, I was like, will I be interesting enough for Jack? But I can tell myself, you know what, Christian, that's a bit of an irrational thought, because Jack will not catch me out and we'll have a conversation. And I can at least lower the sound of these voices in my head. They will probably, for the rest of my life, never go away completely. But once you're aware of, say, that theater in your head, you can hopefully calm it a bit down and manage it.
An interesting fact around the toy industry, only 30% of adults actually know that play is a fundamental birthright and was adopted as such by the United Nations in 1989. And we're quite proud that recently this year, the LEGO Group, together with the global partners, called on the UN to further build and actually adopt an International Day of Play. And this was successful. So from now on, every year, starting in 2024, the 11th of June will be the International Day of Play.
It's not just Lego bricks.
No.
It's creativity, it's innovation, it's thinking. You know what? This actually does really good for my anxiety as well. Like, tell me, you've got the data behind it. Why is play important, and how can it really make a difference into someone's career? And why should more young adults stepping into their professional career make sure that they've got play a part of their activity and life?
Yeah. So we have the data that play is something that does two things basically. It builds competence and skills, and it helps you alleviate stress. So the first part is there are multiple studies to show once you play, you connect to different elements in your brain. So for example, we have Lego bricks at the Lego Group in meetings, and sometimes you start the meeting, say, build how you feel. And once you build something, you access different areas in your brain. If I'm only telling you, tell me how you feel, that's your normal way of communicating. But once you get your hands busy on bricks, you might be surprised that something else comes out. And then when you voice it over, you can tap into very different areas. And that is something that play really can do well. It can allow you to access your brain, maybe not just with your frontal cortex, but in a broader way. We see with kids, it can really build something like creativity, resilience, collaboration, and other skills. We have studies to prove that. So I think that's the first part. And the second part is for young adults, or also grown or older adults, is what we call the joyful focus.
The joyful focus?
The joyful focus. So imagine you come out of a very stressful day studying or working, and you take play. And it can be Lego bricks, but it can also be other types of play. But it needs to be something that is, say, that occupies your mind without getting you, say, more like video games, probably like getting you very excited as well. So imagine you take a box of bricks and you build, and you can basically, you have that balance again between challenge and joy. So it's joyful to build, but maybe there's some tricky elements to build. All your attention is on the building experience. And everything else in your life for a moment can become quiet. And it's maybe not mindfulness per se, but it leads into this direction of, say, you focus on one thing. You can also maybe compare it, say, if you like to cook and you have all the perfect ingredients and you start to cook, that for me is also a place that is similar. No one disturbs me, the kitchen's just to me, and I have all the ingredients and I cook. Similar, I have all the perfect Lego bricks and I build something that will really make me proud when I'm done, but that also challenges me in the process. And that's what we call this joyful focus for adults, which we've seen also in stressful periods like pandemic, really gives something back to adults. We also have a lot of like professional sports players who use Lego bricks to wind down. The Polish #1 in tennis. We have lionesses who are big Lego fans. Mark Cavendish, the best sprinter of all times on a road bike, is a big Lego builder in his downtime. So probably the people with super high stress level in their daily life use Lego bricks to access that state of, you can call it joyful focus, you can call it differently, but to calm their life basically down and focus on one thing and one thing only.
And how does it help with resilience? Because I'm a big believer that resilience is so important. I've actually just, as you talked, I've just got a little bit more competitive because now I'm going to build the Duvet flip set. I think, you know what, that could be the table in the middle. Like, that's good. But how does, like, because I think having the right resilience, because life can be so stressful.
Yes.
And you know what, nothing beats just playing with Lego. Just like, yeah, it's nice. It's not round, but that's cool, isn't it? Like the table in the middle. I'm going to get you a little business card and put you there. But like,
we can get you a Jack person.
There you go. But like, tell me a bit about the resilience, because I think resilience is such an important skill for people to have, whoever you are.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, my thought on resilience would be that our lives are super busy, and there are people who have limited areas where they get their energy from. What I mean by that is, I once read an article around this picture of you have different pots where you draw your energy from. And if your main pot is your career and your professional life, and you have no other pots, once that gets stormy, like your resilience will be pretty low, because everything you stand for is in that pot of, say, for example, I'm Christian and I'm just Christian because I'm really successful in selling Lego bricks. But if you're able to build more pots where you get energy from, I think everything in life is more stable if one of the areas gets stormy. So for example, another pot could be, you have a close group of friends or people you really like, which hopefully have nothing to do with work, and where you can really just be yourself and just let go of things. And for some could be, do you have a sport where you don't punish yourself but enjoy doing? Or it could be something like another hobby, say around cooking or gardening, where you really say, that's my happy place. It can also be something like play for some. And I think the more of these pots you're able to build for yourself, the more you're able to survive the stormy times, because you're not just relying on this one pot to feed all your self-belief, your energy, but you have multiple pots to draw from.
What kind of jobs could a young person do at the Lego Group? Like what are the kind of roles that you could do.
Mhm.
And I know you're not meant to have a favourite, but if you were starting out, where would you want to like hang out at the Lego Group?
So, I mean, the Lego Group is a big international business. And obviously there's all the jobs that the Lego Group can offer, you'll only get in Denmark, where the headquarters is. But in the UK, we have like also a very broad range of jobs. So we have an office in downtown London, we have an office in Slough, and we have multiple stores. We have 19 plus stores across the country. So depending on interest, I think there's jobs in stores, there's jobs in the digital team, there's jobs in my concrete team. For example, we run an intern program. We have 4 interns every year in marketing and in sales, which is just fantastic to see the energy of the young generation coming in and sometimes educating us on. We have one intern who educates us on why some of the products work, because he looks at the social chatter and none of us understands it before. And it's a bit embarrassing when you sit there and the one product does way better than we thought it would. We're running out of stock and I have no clue why. And then the intern tells me, this one minifigure has a big social chatter and people love it. So I think there's a lot of jobs that you can look for. But I think a good starting point is our intern program.
We've only got time for a few more questions. What's one life lesson that's really stuck with you that when things get a little bit tough, you turn to? It could be in a form of a soundbite, it could be what an old mentor said to you, or even someone that you don't like has said to you, but it actually stuck with you and you use it in time of need.
So one thing I think we'll always remember is I come from a place where I like to be liked and where I'm friendly with people. And early in my career, I struggled to say, how do I deliver a tough message if things don't go well? How do I give the tougher feedback or the feedback that the other stakeholder probably not like to hear? And at the beginning of my career, I would start very soft, have a nice chat first, and then very carefully approach the critical topic. And then at the end also say, I'm really sorry that I need to bring this to you. And that this mentor sat me down and said, Christian, there's 3 things you should remember if you need to deliver a tough message. The first one is when you start the meeting, go at it directly. Don't start to run around the bush. Secondly, tell it like it is, because it helps no one if the other person doesn't understand. And thirdly, don't apologize, because probably the other person has done something that wasn't great. It's not your fault. And I basically early in my career did all 3 things exactly the opposite way. And to this day, I probably still like to be nice Christian, but if I need to, I can dial it up and I can really use these 3 points to say, how do I make sure I deliver the message? And it's actually, you can even say it's caring for the other one if you deliver a message that the other person understands, compared to say confusing someone with something that sounds negative, but is very, very hard to decipher maybe.
I like that. Just be direct, don't apologize.
Don't say sorry.
And don't say sorry.
And start right away. Don't have an hour conversation at the end, you drop the bomb.
And my final question, are you ready for it? What's your duvet flip? What gets you out of bed in the morning to flip the duvet?
So maybe first of all, unfortunately, my duvet often doesn't get flipped by me, but instead by my 3-year-old daughter who crawls into bed at 5:30, as she did this morning, but bless her. To your question, there's 2 things that get me out of bed. One is the people I work with. Surrounding yourself with people that care for each other and that do well in the profession they're in, I think is just hugely important. So for example, when I'm on holiday after 2 weeks, I tell my wife I'm missing work. And she's like, you crazy? But I really miss seeing the team and having that team around me. So that really gets me out of bed in the morning. And the second thing is like making an impact. Do something where you feel like that is really something you leave behind. So getting more bricks into the hand of kids is something I'm really passionate about, because I believe that they deliver joy and fun, but they also deliver development and learning opportunities. And having something you really believe in, I think makes work so much easier.
And things like today, coming to share your journey, your career advice, and being so kind to give your time up to come and share your wisdom and your golden nuggets
My
with
absolute pleasure, Jack.
thousands of young people. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having firstly, playing with some Lego bricks with me and just being really
I would
honest.
hope you built the runway for my plane. But
Oh, is that what you've built?
yes.
Cool. Oh, what kind of actually, let's not brand
I'll
anyone.
not call your sponsor. No.
Yeah. There you go. I will say that it's an easyJet plane. But well, I tried to build the duvet flip, but I only had one shelf. You see, we're getting there.
But there's some more bricks.
Yeah, you know what? Before you know it, it's gonna be the whole. You know what? We could make a table. Oh, that's another idea I've got. Anyway, that's another conversation. But I just want to say thank you for your kindness, for sharing your knowledge, telling us a little bit about play, and your real wisdom golden nuggets, because you don't actually hear them anywhere. Everyone says work, hustle, do all this, but actually when you just take it back, take time to reflect, surround yourself with good people, reach out to that person you want to mentor you, things just start coming into play. So thank you.
Thank you, Jack. My pleasure.
Che vuoi gira largo da me, non sai che oramai è finita con te. Tu sei quella che mi fa passare soltanto